The other name that Arthur Moats tossed out there that he said he'd be open to is a familiar name for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And we'll, after this, we have another name on the free agency market that I think is very, very interesting that we haven't talked about yet. But this is a good one. Arthur Smith tossed out the idea, or his co-host, Deke, I think his name is, excuse me, tossed out a name. What about JuJu Smith-Schuster? New England Patriots wide receiver, signed a 3-year deal there last season. Didn't really do a ton for the Patriots, although nobody in New England really did a ton last season. I mean, you look at him as, you call New England, hey, what's a 6th round pick for JuJu Smith-Schuster? You willing to give that up type of situation? Is it enough for the Pittsburgh Steelers to say, yeah, that's 100% our wide receiver 3? Or you say, nah, maybe that's just maybe we're just tossing names out there at this point?
I would kind of hope that JuJu Smith-Schuster is not their, best bet for wide receiver 3 right now. He didn't do a lot. He went through some injuries, I think, last year in New England. Didn't play a full season, so that affected things. But even when he was on the field, just did not look particularly explosive or looked like any kind of impact player. Understanding, the limitations of, having Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi as your quarterback and all that. I understand it, but I don't think in my mind there's enough to grab onto here. I think right now you add JuJu Smith-Schuster, and then you've got, Van Jefferson and Quez Watkins, who are, for all intents and purposes, the same player. These are just 3 underwhelming slot guys fighting for one spot. And at that point, I'd just rather have Calvin Austin in there. This is I don't think this really makes any sense, especially if this was before they had signed Quez Watkins and Van Jefferson, I would have given it some thought. I think Juju's still relatively young given his time in the league. Mm-hmm. There's a high likelihood that he could come back from whatever injuries he had and be a productive player again. But I don't know. You've already got 2 slot guys that I'm not super intrigued by in this draft already, and I don't think JuJu brings you anything different or different enough, especially to warrant a trade or giving up a draft pick this year.
Yeah, I like JuJu, and I think if JuJu's going to turn his career around, Pittsburgh might be the place to do it. He's had some good years here. I mean, his only Pro Bowl season, his only 1,000-yard seasons in Pittsburgh. His year in Kansas City was not bad. He's a 900-yard receiver in Kansas City. Now, don't get me wrong, he was wide receiver 1 in Kansas City, and with Patrick Mahomes throwing the football, I think I could have a couple dozen yards. And and I think there's potential there. I think JuJu could be. Look, I think JuJu's better than Van Jefferson and Quez Watkins, but I don't know if he's got enough upside to surpass Calvin Austin. I don't think you're looking at JuJu. I think that's what intrigues people about, or intrigues the Steelers about Quez Watkins and Van Jefferson, is just the fact that at best these guys turn into a really solid wide receiver 4. That you're like, wow, dude, we got a stud as our last wide receiver on the depth chart. And I think that's a good place to be. JuJu is you're hoping he turns into a really good wide receiver 3. And it just doesn't feel like the Steelers were ever looking for a wide receiver 3. It feels like the longer we've gone through this and the more the Tyler Boyd thing kind of sunk and all the news came out about that, and we found out that they never really tossed him any money, and there wasn't serious conversations, and they were really interested in Mike Williams. It just kind of felt like the Steelers were headhunting for a wide receiver 2, and we all assumed that they were headhunting for a wide receiver 3. And maybe that's just because they like Calvin Austin and they want to see what Calvin Austin brings to the team in year 3. And they think that the 3 of those together are just good enough. Okay, sounds good. We can make something out of this on top of Pat Freiermuth, on top of Connor Hayward, who I think is an undervalued piece to this whole puzzle, is, the way that they could utilize Connor Hayward in year 3. And I think they could look at it like that and just say we're good. There's just nothing that indicates to me the Steelers are looking for a wide receiver 3. It's always been, we need a wide receiver 2, and they just didn't get one. And I think that's what gets in my way. Otherwise, it'd be what would the Patriots give up for or ask for JuJu? Here's what I want to talk about next. Size matters. We all know it, and it's important to remember it in times of need. I recently went to a small law firm in hopes of getting the compensation I felt I deserved. I didn't, and to this day, I still think about the money that I may have missed out on. I filled out mounds of paperwork, then waited around for what felt like forever, got phone call after phone call telling me what I did not do right in the process, and it was expensive, all to get underwhelming compensation and almost zero satisfaction. Fortunately, if you ever get seriously injured and want to file a claim, you don't have to go through the same hassle I did. Instead, you can make it way easier by finding out if you have a claim in just a few clicks on your phone and working with America's biggest injury law firm with the promise of being for the people. Here comes Morgan & Morgan, today's sponsor. Morgan & Morgan has over 1,000 attorneys working in all 50 states fighting to get their clients the money they deserve. In recent months, they've achieved verdicts for their clients, including one that is worth $26 million. That is 40 times the highest insurance offer. And they're absolutely free unless you win. I got lowballed. Don't make the same mistake I did. Fighting big companies takes a big firm, and with America's biggest injury law firm, you're ready to take on insurance companies of any size. Don't overthink it. You can start your claim in just a few clicks by following the link in our description or by going to www.forthepeople.com/allsteelers. It only takes a few minutes to find out if you have a case, and if you have, it might be worth millions. Nothing.
Like nothing. Yeah, it'd be like a bag of balls. Like, yeah, so I mean, that's the thing. Like, it's more about like a roster spot at this point than any kind of like that. Like,
yeah,
I don't know. You add JuJu, and then you've got 3 wide receivers who do pretty much the same thing, all eating up 3 different roster spots, and like that's not really worth it in my mind. I mean, it seems redundant to have Quez Watkins and Van Jefferson on the same roster.
Quez Watkins and Calvin, they're the same. Van Jefferson's like a tall, lengthy, kind of physical dude. The other two are like speedy guys. And I feel like those two,
but they all play the same. They all play the same position.
Yeah, they're all gonna play. Van will be a little bit everywhere, but I agree with you. Like, he's kind of pointless. But they all play. They're all wide receiver 4s at best. You know, like they're all like a bottom of the depth chart. They're filler guys. You know, they have a bunch of which is what JuJu is at this point, is a filler.
Right, exactly. And you need not filler. You need you need someone who can make some plays for you. And I'm just not. I wouldn't feel comfortable relying on any of those guys saying you're my wide receiver too this year.
No, I agree. I think if it's going to happen, if it ever would happen, it'd be in the middle of the summer, middle of training camp, near end of training camp. JuJu's not going to make the team. He's not really looking that great. They make a couple of phone calls. JuJu ends up in Pittsburgh because they're like, why not? Like, why wouldn't we just add JuJu back to the roster for absolutely nothing? And, you're giving up like a conditional 7th round pick next year. And that's good enough. Like, I think that could be the move. Right now. It just, at this point, the wide receiver market is all a bunch of nobodies. The Steelers got enough nobodies. They need somebody. They don't seem to be interested in nobodies. They seem to be interested in the big names. He's not. Plus, like Jerry Dulac, somebody said it to me. They were texting me asking me about JuJu over the weekend, and they said, they were like, well, Jerry Dulac said there could be a trade of significance. I was like, yeah, exactly.
It's not JuJu Smith-Schuster trade.
You just made the point for yourself there, pal. It's not. There's no significance in JuJu in the same sentence. And again, I think JuJu, if he's going to turn his career around anywhere, it's going to be in Pittsburgh. But I don't see the Steelers looking at it saying, hey, yeah, let's bring him over here and let's figure that out right now. Just don't see it happening.